For today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the topic of magnetic attraction and repulsion. And we've talked a lot about these different properties, characteristics that all magnets have. And we said that one of those properties is the ability to attract or repel other magnets. And that's what we'll be looking at today. Now, since the beginning of this unit, we've talked about magnetism being a force. And we know that a force is just a push or a pull on an object. So when magnets push or pull on one another, we call this attracting or repelling. And when we put two magnets next to each other, we can tell whether they're going to attract, pull together, or repel, push apart, depending on which poles of the magnet are facing each other. Now, we know that each magnet has a north pole and a south pole, and we looked at this a little bit when we talked about magnetic fields and magnetic domains. And the location of these poles just depend on how the magnetic domain, the magnetic field, is aligned on a particular magnet. This property of magnetic attraction or magnetic repulsion can be demonstrated when the poles of two magnets are placed near one another. Now, we said that when magnets attract one another, they're pulling together. They're wanting to, as we say often with magnets, they're wanting to stick to each other. And magnetic attraction is this pulling force that occurs when opposite poles of magnets are facing one another. So for example, if I take the north pole of one magnet and place it near the south pole of another magnet, those two magnets will attract one another, or they'll have a tendency to want to pull together, to stick together. That's the idea of magnetic attraction. When we talk about magnetic repulsion, or two magnets repelling one another, that's their tendency to want to push each other away, to not stick together. And you've probably seen it before. Sometimes if you take two magnets and try to stick them together, if you turn the magnets a certain way, no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you push them together, they'll never quite go together, and they won't stay together when you let them go because of this idea of repulsion. They repel or push away each other. And magnetic repulsion occurs when the like poles of the magnet are facing each other. That means the north pole is facing the north pole of another magnet, or the south pole is facing the south pole of another magnet. And in that case, the magnets push away and they repel because the magnetic domains in that case are facing in opposite directions. Magnetic domains want to line up. They want to have all of the electrons facing in one direction, like we talked about in lesson 3. But when we put like poles together, it forces them apart because these are opposite each other. They don't want to stay together, even though it's the same poles. For example, you have the north pole of one magnet lined up this way, the north pole of another magnet lined up this way. That's facing in opposite directions, even though it's the same pole, so they want to repel or push away from each other. So this is a pretty simple lesson, and it's not a very complex concept, but it is important to understand the idea of attracting forces and repelling forces that can exist between magnets. And we'll be looking at some activities in the next couple days of how we can predict what magnets will do when they're placed near each other. And we'll also be looking at how we can use magnets to create motion in objects by attracting or by repelling.